אין לי מקשר עצמי לכל הצדיקים האמיתים, לכל הצדיקים האמיתים שוכני הפך. לא שמה בארץ המה ובחי רבנו הקדוש צדיק יסוד רב נחמן ולכל חוכמה. רבנו נחמן מפגע בן שמחה, אנחנו נאומן. זכותו תגן אלינו והכל ישראל אמן. So as a little summary, just to recap what we were talking about. The beginning of Torah, Samech. Rabbeinu obviously introduces the entire Torah with the Idra Rabbah. With how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai introduces this holy portion in the Zohar Kadosh in Parashat Naso. And over there it speaks about the supernal Torah, what we call the Torah Me'atikastima, the Torah of the hidden ancient one, better known in practical terms as the Torah of the Mashiach, the Torah which will bring the Jewish people out of the Galut. And that Torah is a specific Idbananut, it's a specific contemplation, to be able to understand, especially to apply what is written in those secrets, to get to the secrets first off, and then even within the secrets to bring them down, which is the hardest part. Yeah. To attain a Idbananut in the secrets, because to be able to bring it down anyways, you need to contemplate, you need to get there, you need to get the Idbananut. The Idbananut that we're talking about, that Rabbeinu is specifically addressing here, is the Torah Me'atikastima. Because there's levels of Idbananut, obviously. There's levels of attaining certain binah, deduction, and understanding the Torah that can get you to certain places, perhaps remez, perhaps drash. But Rabbeinu is specifically referring to sod, and not just the sod, but the highest element of the sod here. And everybody attains this at their own madriga, obviously dependent on their ashirut. Rabbeinu is saying the vehicle is ashirut, but there's many obviously more qualities that a person needs to get there, which Rabbeinu will discuss in the lesson, obviously. But to be able to reveal these secrets from Keter, you need to attain Idbananut. And Rabbeinu is describing what will now enter the elements of that secret that he brings down from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the Idra Rabbah. How to attain Idbananut? Through ashirut, through wealth. And this is why it says in the Torah, in the Pshat of the Torah, en kemach en Torah. If there's no kemach, there's no Torah. There's no sustenance, there's no Torah. Because through the sustenance, through the livelihood that you're going to get, through the mezonot that you're going to get, a person will attain the Torah. Specifically, which elements of the Torah? The secrets of the Torah. So you need to have at some level of parnasa, Rabbeinu was saying, to get to this Idbananut, which is extremely great, right? That's a minimum level, parnasa. You need to earn a living. Yeah. Second thing, once we talk about that, this is why very certain tzaddikim had access to lots of money, because through the money, which we're going to see in today's part of the lesson, which we'll read, the more the money, the greater the kli, the vehicle to attain the Idbananut. Which is why very big tzaddikim had lots of money. Mm-hmm. Examples that we were just mentioning where we left off at the end, towards the middle of this first section, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rav Ashi, Yisachar, Avraham Avinu, they all had tremendous amounts of money, because to bring down the Torah they need to bring down, they need to get through that Idbananut. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the author of the Mishnayot. Rav Ashi was the one who compiled the Gemara. All these people, Moshe Rabbeinu was the ultimate Moshe Rabbeinu, and so on and so forth. Everybody had some sort of money, some sort of parnasat at the very least, but these very big tzaddikim had tremendous amounts of wealth to bring down the Idbananut they need to get, that awesome aspect of Idbananut. And that's what a secret is that we just mentioned earlier, Yisachar Chamor Garem. That Yisachar Chamor Garem, how does Unkelus translated as Atir Menirsin, that he was wealthy in possession. So everything is a secret about those people that we're talking about. Yisachar Chamor Garem, what does a strong-boned donkey have to do with money? No, Unkelus is teaching us the secret of what Yisachar really is. What? That he had ashirut, and that ashirut gave him access to that those elements of the Torah, etc., etc. Moshe Rabbeinu had tremendous ashirut, and where we left off, therefore, everyone she'avar derech yadam Torah, that through the Torah, that the Torah went through them, that meaning every person who was a vehicle through which the Torah went through, any person who was a vessel to bring down a special element of the Torah, a secret of the Torah, they had tremendous wealth to do so. Da'anu Moshe Rabbeinu she'avih haTorah leIsrael. Moshe Rabbeinu, who brought the Torah to Israel, who is extremely wealthy, as the Chachamim say in the Gemara, Nedarim. And also Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who organized and who sealed all the Mishnayot, and Rav Ashi, who sealed the Talmud and organized the entire Talmud. That they were all very wealthy people, and for the fact that they organized the Torah Sheba'al Peh, because of that, because the Torah went through them, they needed the wealth to be able to do that. Rabbeinu is teaching us a very big secret here. These tzaddikim do not, it's not like they despise money. They despise the money, but they only use the money to be able to attain that which is much bigger, which is the Hitbonenut. The money in itself they despise. They're sonei abetza. They hate profit, like monetary gain. It's not something like that at all. The way we think that, okay, we need money. No, it's not that. It's just a kli to be able to attain something much bigger. So they need all the access in the world, like Rabbeinu said in this Torah, in the introduction, like we talked about, or when Rabbeinu finished the lesson, he said 3 things contrary to the world, and one of them we were saying was that Rabbeinu said that everybody says the true tzaddik doesn't need money, because if he's such a tzaddik, he's rid of that pride, he didn't need the money. No, Rabbeinu was saying, but I say the true tzaddik needs all the money in the world. And the secret is because he needs to bring down the Torah, especially which Torah? The Torah to draw that and to bring it to the people so that they can use those etzot to actually fix themselves, because it's through that Torah that we're going to be redeemed. As the Rabbeinu introduces the Likutei Moharan with, the Zohar Kadosh teaches us, the Sodot HaTorah are the things that bring out the most people from the Klipot. And Rabbeinu talks about this in Torah 56, where the Klipot, the evil forces, they love the Torah, which we call the Pshat.
The evil forces.
Yeah. Why? Because the Pshat is almost the lower elements of the Torah, where the lower elements of the Torah are close to the feet. That which is close to the feet is where the klipot dwell and reside.
Yeah.
Because of that, the klipot are able to latch onto that. That's the Torah they can grab onto. The second you go to the secrets of the Torah, which are closer to Keter, closer to Chokhmah, Bina, Avedat, and the Hitbonenut, we're talking about the Bina. When you go higher, the klipot can't latch onto it. There's no dinim there. They can't grab onto the Sod of the Torah.
Yeah, it makes sense, because I feel like you look at like Christianity, like they just look at Pshat. They just see what the words say, and then that's what they attach. There's no deeper, there's no sods for them. It's just
for sure.
So, and then I feel like a lot of heretics, what they do is like see like oh, it says this and this and that. Like with the tzaddikim, the martyrs. It's like, well, the brother sold Yosef, and that's what it says in the clear Pshat. So he used that against them, and it's like the ultimate klipa. So they're just taking. They don't see the sod.
For sure.
Yeah.
They can't even argue with the sod because it's so beyond the intellect.
Yeah.
The sod is beyond the place in which they can argue, because everything they argue is based on rationale. They're trying. Rabbeinu speaks about this most of the time, that the main klipa today, which we will call the chokhmah kfira, or the chokhmah chitzoniot, the foreign wisdom, which is atheism, is all based on rationale. They're trying to convince a Jew that there's nothing supernatural. Everything is within the realm of nature. What are they essentially trying to convince the Jew? That the realm of nature is coincidence. And everything is in the realm of coincidence. They can explain everything. Rabbeinu's focus is so much on the fact that you shouldn't need to explain everything, which is why his entire Torah is filled with Zohar, Arizal, secrets of the Baal Shem Tov, and all the deep secrets of the Torah, look at the first 15 lessons, explain stories which make no sense off the surface level, because the Torah that's going to grab people, especially a generation like this, which is in the klipa more than any other generation, meaning that the further we sink closer to the Mashiach, the worse we're going to get. The more grave the situation is going to be, because we are beyond the 50th gate of Tumah. We are in the 50th gate. In Egypt, we're in the 49th. Rabbeinu says, Rabbi Natan writes in Likutei Tefillot, we're lower than 50th.
Mitzrayim was.
100%. We are below the Shivim Panim HaTorah. Which is why Rabbeinu brings down Tzibur HaMasiot, which we're going to talk about in this lesson. Because Tzibur HaMasiot...
And Rabbeinu, during his time, he was like, we're in the 50th gate.
Yeah.
But like, I look at his generation, and I'm like, you had all the best of the best.
You're right, all the big tzaddikim.
But all the big tzaddikim.
But he saw all the preparation. He saw everything that was coming. Like Rabbeinu writes in Sichot HaRan, he said, everything that I will say will be Bet Asher Yeshno Po, Bet Asher Enenu Po, like it says in the Torah. That everyone who was there at Har Sinai, there were those that were there and those that weren't there. Meaning, and Rashi comments on this, that all the neshamot from the beginning to the end were at Har Sinai. Rabbeinu said, everything I say is not just something for my generation as I am alive, but beyond my death, Tanu Mashiach, Tchiat HaMetim, Olam Haba. All that stuff. Because when the tzaddik Ayemet is saying something, he sees the entire picture. So he needs something that applies to everything. From the beginning to the end. A derech that is all-inclusive. For the lowest rasha to the biggest tzaddik. Which is why any person can pick up a Likutei Moharan. Yeah. It's a special sefer. The most special in the sense that you can pick up a Likutei Moharan at the lowest level, and at the highest level, and have a completely different way of seeing it. And very intentional, obviously. Very, very intentional. But what we were saying earlier, that this generation, we are in the 50th gate of Tubah.
It's crazy because we always talk about like Mitzrayim, the 49th gate. But I thought if you get to the 50th gate, we're done.
We are. But that's why we need a Torah which is beyond the Torah of Egypt.
But we're not done. We're still here. Like, there's still like yeshivot, there's still Eretz Yisrael, there's still like
You're right.
Torah learning. And so, because I always thought like once the Jews hit the 50th gate, like there was no coming back.
So what's the idea here? That's by the way, that's the entire argument. What we're talking about right now is the entire argument between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the Talmidei Chachamim in the Gemara Shabbat. I forget which page, Kuf Lamed, if I'm not mistaken. It's at the beginning of the Likutei Moharan, the introduction which Rabbeinu starts Likutei Moharan with, about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's promise that the Torah will never be forgotten.
Yeah.
What did the Chachamim see? Closer to the time of Mashiach, we're so screwed.
Yeah.
We're going to be in the 50th gate. There's no way out.
Yeah.
But only Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai could make that promise. And the reason being is because only he had access to the Torah Me'atik Astima, which is the only Torah capable of going to the place which we call Acher.
Oh, okay. So without the Sod of Torah, we wouldn't be able to get
Exactly.
out.
And that's why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai introduces, or why it's in Parashat Naso actually, Ba'achibur Adiyu Sefer Hazor Yifkun Ba Min Galuta. With this book, this collection called the Zohar Kadosh, we're going to leave the Galut. We're going to be leaving the final Galut. Rabbeinu explains this to be Zohar Kadosh Likutei Moharan, because without the Sodat Torah, the Torah Me'atik Astima, which is this, and specifically one Sefer Rabbi Nachman composed, very famously called Sipur HaMasiot, which is actually the Torah Me'atik Astima in its most intense form. It's so intense it has to be hidden in the story. Beyond the Torah. It's higher than Likutei Moharan. The secrets are greater, and they are composed in a way where even the lowest Jew can grab onto the story, apply what he thinks makes sense to the story, which is actually the greatest Torah. The greatest Torah is that which goes to the lowest place. Because the greater the doctor, the one who can heal the sickest patient. That's the principle here Rabbeinu is talking about. Yeah. So what's the greatest Torah, if we're talking about, because it's all the same principle. The greater the thing, the lower it can go. Like Rabbeinu said in the Likutei Moharan, sometimes you'll see a tzaddik, we think that tzaddik is completely separated from the world because of his great kedusha, his prishut, his abstinence from impurity and stuff. Rabbeinu said it's the exact opposite. He's so abstained from the world, you think of him as nothing. You think of him as something totally separate. The truth is, though, the greatest tzaddik can look like any other person, and you could not tell the difference. Aside from the fact that he can understand you more than anyone else. Why? Because to be that great, you have to understand the problem of every individual. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had to understand the remedy which could fix the sickest patients, which is why only he was capable of saying Ki lo tishachach mipizaro. When all the Chachamim knew that phrase, but they never thought it could mean that the Torah could bring them out of the Galut, because only Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai could say, I know what can bring them out. It's a secret of the Zohar. Mm-hmm. So Rabbeinu explained this in lesson 56. The Klipot love the Pshatei Oraita, the Pshat of the Torah, because the Pshat of the Torah can't go down to the Klippa. Meaning it cannot sustain a person and revive a person who's stuck in the Klippa. Because it cannot go to that place to conceal itself, or else the Klippot will grab onto it and it's finished. That's why you'll never see a person, you'll never really see a person from a very dark place do a crazy teshuvah. It's very rare. I don't know what it is. Crazy teshuvah through halakha and gemara. It's very rare to see that. Yeah. What do you see though? Sodot of Kabbalah, midot of Chassidut, teaching of Chassidut, because only that Torah is able to conceal itself, to go to the choshech, to that really dark place, and retrieve a person who's in what we call the filthy places, mekomot hamtunafim. The filthiest places, the places which, lefi hanigle, according to the revealed elements of the Torah, lefi pshat, Hashem says He promises not to go down there. I think it says like this. I think the Shekhinah made a promise in the Gemara Sukkah. I think it says that it will never go down below 10 tefachim. Yeah. Why 10 tefachim? Because what we call the Reshut HaRabim. So why? The Sodot to light the menorah below 10 tefachim. Yeah. all these secrets. Another example, I will not give my kavod to the acher. What's the acher? Well, Rabbeinu says in his most famous Torah, one of his most famous lessons, that Hashem makes a promise that his kavod will never go to the filthy place. But we say, Ki meloch ol haaretz kevodo. So what's the answer? The only way to get Hashem's kavod is from a place in which it's nistar. And what's that nistar place we're talking about? It's called the keter. It's called the ayin moment. The ayin moment is what we're talking about here. The Torah be'atikas tima'ah. It's a place of longing. It's a place of yearning. It's all very connected, because if you're going to read The Lost Princess while we're studying this lesson, the entire story of the Lost Princess is this is the explanation of the story of the Lost Princess. The Lost Princess goes much deeper. But the Lost Princess is the story behind this teaching. It's more infinite.
How long is the?
Very small story. It's actually really small. Yeah.
I'll read it this week.
I wouldn't say it's extremely small.
Yeah.
Smaller. Out of his 13 stories, it's on the smaller end.
Okay.
But you're going to see how everything's connected.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going to read the entire lesson as a whole, how Rabbeinu speaks about food, how it speaks about the 70 Shivim Panim LaTorah, and how the viceroy of the king falls into a sleep of 70 years, similar to Chon Yamagel in the Gemara Tanit, I think. Forget. All these stories, how they're all connected about sleep, about waking up, about Sipurei Masiot, finding the princess, what that really means. All these things are connected. Rabbeinu's going to speak about the deepest secrets right now. Why? Because for this generation, the only way out, because we don't recognize who we are anymore, which we call a sleep beyond 70 years, Nun Sharet Tuma, the only way out is to be woken up with our panim, to show us our face again, to show us what we look like, to do a proper teshuvah. And because we're in a coma, we don't know what we look like, God forbid. The only way out is Sipurei Masiot, which encompasses all the Shivim Panim LaTorah within the story, just within one story. That's why it has to be an ancient story, or Sipurei Masiot, a story tale, Mishanim Kanunion, from a very long time ago, a place which is beyond time. Even though my Devalut doesn't look like a similar story in the Torah, it's beyond the concept of Zman. And because it's beyond the concept of Zman, what's that idea? Teshuvah. The only way out of that place is Teshuvah. But the only way you can do that is if you go beyond time to repair what you did. Because according to the Pshat level, even according to the Halakha, it will never make sense for you to do Teshuvah from that place because it's so filthy. Mm-hmm. But yet Rabbeinu is saying that the Torah, what we call Torah be'atikas tima'ah, which is a Torah of complete Rachamim, Rav Chesed, which we'll talk about in this class, in this Torah, that can revive a person even from the place in which Hashem said you cannot get out. Even even what the Chachamim said in Gemara Shabbat, that you cannot get out. Only we need someone like Rabbi Shimon to say, no, you're wrong. That's why it requires very few tzaddikim to get to that madrega. And what do they need? Ashirut. They need wealth to do that. So Rabbeinu is saying the way to bring that force of never give up, that there's a way out from that place to teach people from the place in which we are in right now, in the galut of the 50th gate, that we can get out is from that place of Ashirut, through which they're going to translate that Torah be'atikas tima'ah. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay, v'zeh b'chinat. Yeah, you see it?
Wait, want me to read?
Yeah, go for it.
וזה בחינת, בשר לך ודרשו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה. הפסולת יהיו שלך וכו'. כי כמו שבפשטי התורה, קודש שם חדשים, איזה פשט צריך לומר מקודם הקדמות ואחר כך משליחין הקדמות ובאים אל המכוון, כי העיקר הוא המבוקן, וכל הדברים הקדמות שמוקדים הם בחינת פסולת, שנסערים ונפסלים סביב המכוון. כמו כן, בהתבוננות התורה צריך ללך מקדום ולסבב בכמה סיבובים עד שבאים אל המכוון, והעיקר הוא המכוון, וכל אלו הסבבים הם בחינת פסולת. והם בחינת יסורים שעל ידו באים אל ההתבוננות.
Chazak. So, this is what it says. Now Rabbeinu is going to explain the secret of what Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu with regard to the second Luchot. And obviously it's very deep why it's the second Luchot and not the first Rabbeinu is using. Second luchot specifically, because the second luchot teaches this inyan of tshuva, which is mi'atik astima. Because they just did avodah zarah technically with the Egel Zahav, and now we're talking about the second luchot with the tshuva that has to be beyond time. It's a tshuva of Yom Kippur. It's a tshuva of bina specifically, which comes from a second luchot that we learn. So psolecha, carve out for yourself 2 luchot like the first ones, right? That's how Hashem says it. Shni luchot lavanim karishonim. V'dashu chabatanim b'machad hachachamim say in the Gemara Nedarim, hapsoletim shelcha, psolecha, carve out for yourself. Psolecha, carve out for yourself. What is psolecha? The explanation is hapsolet yushelcha. Don't carve out for yourself. Psolet comes the word psolet. The scraps will be yours. Meaning all the carvings which you're going to use to make the luchot beautiful, all the extra shavings will be yours. And that was so valuable. That sapphire was so valuable that it became Moshe Rabbeinu's wealth. Hapsolet yushelcha.
I remember we spoke about this.
Yeah, we talked about it. So this is, exactly. This is it inside, essentially. Meaning the psolet that's going to be from the carved out luchot will be yours. And now, why is that so significant? Because we're going to see how the psolet is actually the money. What that means is like this. Key. Because just like when we get to the element of the pshat of the Torah, the simple element of the Torah, the simple explanation of the Torah, before you are able to create a novelty in pshat, to create a novelty in it, perhaps Gemara or halacha or something like this, you need to what? Come out with introduction first before you explain a concept. Before you get to the intended subject, you need to introduce what you're talking about. You cannot just explain a chidush before you explain what the halacha is about, essentially all the laws of Shabbat, etc., etc. Afterwards, you're going to throw away all the introduction. And then you're going to go to the intended subject. You're going to get to the tachlit. Because the main thing is what? The intended subject, what you're trying to teach. That's new. And all the things that were introduced beforehand are the psolet. Because it's all there to bring you to the mechuvan. But that's not the necessary point. What the teacher's trying to teach you is E equals MC squared. But the equation, all the equations beforehand are not the main point. It's E equals MC squared. Mm-hmm. Why? Because everything else is psolet are the scraps, which are carved out from the main place which we're trying to get to all the carvings, all the shavings. The same is true when you get to the hitbonanut Torah. When we get to the contemplative elements of the Torah, you need to bring hakdamot. You need to introduce the subject first. You need to surround the mechuvan. You need to go round and round before you get to the intended subject. Mm-hmm. Until you get there, and the main thing is the mechuvan, and then all those introductions, all those sibuvim, all those round and round and round that you make before you get to the intended subject are the psolet. All the introductions are what we're going to call the wealth, the money. To get you to the greater element, which is what the hitbonanut, the chidush of the Torah that you're trying to bring down here. And that's exactly what Chabad was saying, and what we're going to read in the Papa Wadei Chochmah. We're going to read in the Papa Wadei Chochmah to see that the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was able to have so much ashirut is because he views it as psolet in the first place. The reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was at the element to bring down the Torah, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and all these great tzaddikim before Rav Ashi and Yisachar and everyone who needed the ashirut, they all saw the ashirut as an introduction to the intended subject. They never made the ashirut the ikar.
They never made the end, so it was just the means.
Exactly, yeah. It's just the means to the end. That's the main thing. If it remains the means to the end, that's how you know you're on the way to hitbonanut. If you make that the end actually to the means, that's where it becomes the entire problem, which people fall into tavat, and all these things. Yeah. Truth is, it's not up to us. Unless we get to the madriga where we start praying for ashirut to be able to attain that, which is a very high madriga. That's I don't know who's at the madriga today to pray for money to attain hitbonanut. You have to be completely removed from Gashmiel to do that. Aside from the fact that you have to completely break your tavat mammon, which is something that Rabbeinu said very few people in history have done. And that's Rabbi Nachman who said that. So Rabbeinu said that the hardest tava, the hardest one, not the main tava. The main tava we know is the tava for arayin, for immorality. The hardest tava, he said, is tavat mammon. Because it's so great. You need money to survive. How much? How much are you going to eat? It's so great. You don't need anything else. You don't need the immorality to survive. You don't need any of that desire to survive. You need money to survive. And because you need it, it's in your possession, it becomes such a nisayon, such a hard test. The balance as to what's for you, what's not for you, what's this, how to remove my gashmut completely so that the money is completely for someone else. Very complicated stuff we're talking about. But because Moshe Rabbeinu viewed the ashirut, the wealth, as the psolet, this is why Hashem says, psolecha, carve out for yourself. Psolet yushelecha. What's the psolecha? Carve out for yourself the luchot, the second luchot. What's the second luchot? It's the Torah me'atikas tima. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Why Anochi? The Aleph. The Aleph comes from beyond the Aleph, the Bet of Bereshit. Meaning Moshe Rabbeinu is now going to bring down the luchot, which have all the secrets of the Torah. It's according to Moshe. It's for where Moshe Rabbeinu's generation was at. That was the Torah me'atikas tima. And to bring that down, what did Hashem tell him the secret of? Psolecha. Carve out for yourself. Meaning what? The psolet will be yours. Why? Because you view the ashirut as psolet anyways. So I'm going to give it to you because to be able to bring down the luchot, you need the scraps. It's not that I'm going to throw away the scraps. You need them to bring down the luchot. That's the chidush. And Rabbeinu is teaching us this idea here that the ikar for Moshe Rabbeinu was the nechuvah, the intended subject, which is what? The Torah. To bring it down. All the introduction, which is the extra scrap, the extra sapphire, and the luchot, was the way in which he brought it down. It's almost a way of increasing his influence, because a person who has tremendous amounts of money has tremendous amounts of influence. Hon Yosif Re'im Rabim. It says in Mishlei, Hon Yosif, increase wealth, Re'im Rabim. You're going to have many friends. For the tzaddik to bring down a Torah that affects many people, he needs Hon Yosif, wealth. Which is why Rabbeinu said, sometimes people come to my Torah because they see I'm well dressed. Meaning there's a physical element there that is used solely for the purpose of drawing people in, because he knows that people wouldn't come without it. That's where they are. That's a simple element of viewing the ashirut, that Moshe Rabbeinu needed the ashirut for the influence. Which is why Rabbeinu says in many different lessons, lesson 69 if I'm not mistaken, 68, 69, where he says that a person with lots of money, you can tell has a big soul. Because for him to be granted that much money, needs to be the fact that he has to have a big kli, which is a big neshama. Yeah. People with lots of money have big neshamot, which is why the main goal is to influence those people. The hard part, though, because when you influence them, they have so many souls that are subordinate to them that all the other souls will come with them.
Oh wow! Yeah, I was saying with money comes influence.
Exactly.
So you're saying you can get one, and then that just.
Rabbeinu said, focus your time on the wealthy, but the secret of this is in the story of the master of prayer, where the master of prayer was the person who's going to try to influence the world to pray, to put the power in Ibodedut, which is the tachlit of everything. He cannot get them unless he starts with the poor people first. He needs to build a band of brothers from the small end first.
He says start with the poor people. And
start with the people that don't have influence first. Build a band, and when you do that, then you can get to the nechuvan, which is the people with influence. You cannot go directly there.
Can't go there. Okay.
It requires a tremendous amount of steps and progress beforehand, which he explains over there in this entire element sequence, why it has to be like that. But, and also why it has to be like that at a simple level is because of anava.
What's anava?
Humility. If you go only for the influential people, you will not be at a place to do that from L'Shem Shamayim, because you'll do it for your own kavod. The biggest problem with money is kavod, honor. What is why people give people honor who have lots of money is because they're influential people. Yeah. They like that money. People are attracted to money. There's a spiritual reason for that. That Rabbeinu explained, because the Jewish people or the nishamot, which are drawn from the kisei kavod and stuff like that, are sourced from the same place where ashirut is sourced from. And its source, ashirut, is a very holy thing. When it comes down level by level into the gashmiut of the world, it becomes very physical and gashmi and corporeal. It becomes something very tough and very much in the aspect of deen. But in its source, it comes from the same place as the nishamot.
Yeah, you could also, like, I'm just thinking about this, like, because you were saying that Parnasah can bring down the Sod, the Torah. And maybe that's what a Jew always wants. He always wants to yearn. So we're not really yearning for money. We're yearning for the Sod.
Very
It's
special.
just covered
That's,
up
by the
by
way,
the money.
spot on. Because the soul, when he yearns for something, the goof gets distracted to think that it's for something else.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that the soul is yearning for it because of the greater purpose of the Hitbodedut.
Yeah, like I mean, like our Ratzon's so covered up right now, and the klipa on money is so strong, but if you really get it all the way, it's all directed just to get to the soul.
Exactly. Dig deep, you'll find the real reason.
Yeah.
Which is why deep down, we have to judge ourselves positively in a sense. Obviously to recognize where we're not holding, where we are holding, because a lot of things surface level, we can see how crooked sometimes we even are, how people are by the fact that they treat people differently because they have money.
Oh,
It's a very big blemish. And by the way, this is something we see tremendously today. Babanim, this, that, they're always searching for people with money. It's always something about money, because money holds so much koach.
Yeah.
What's the proof of it? By the fact that it can help you attain the Torah Ma'atik Estima, or Hitbodedut, which we're talking about, the level of Keter. It's so, money in its source is so kadosh, it is the ultimate way to get to the highest place. It really is. What we're talking about is Kemach.
What do you think? Is it's like the lowest thing as well? Like we were saying before, like
Yes, because there's such a, yes, in its physical form, it's so low and it has so much nisayon involved with it, which we're talking about, why people are so attracted to money for the wrong reasons, that if you really use it for the right reasons, it can get you to the highest place, because zele umadze, everything has an equal opposite. Just as much as you can use money for evil, which is literally money can be the biggest avodah zarah. Rabbeinu says, the avodah zarah today is ta'avat mamon. Today, the avodah zarah of today is ta'avat mamon, because people go to work, every single step they do, every single thought they think is just to earn another dollar so they can live their life the way they want to, with their luxuries, with their motarot, their excess. Everything is for their own kavod, to feed their own kavod, and they're just replenishing that. They're going to work for 12 hours a day. How much can I make money? I'm going to take this call and this thing. I'm going to do this job because I can earn more money without any integrity, without any ikar for the mechuban. That the money is not the money. That's not the ikar anymore. When you make the money the means to the end, that's when the money has so much koach.
mm-hmm.
The money has so much koach to bring you simcha, to bring you hitbonenut. Because we say, Ezu Asher Samleach Bechelko. One who's happy with his portion, meaning he has something, he has a chelek, he has a portion, he has a parnasah, but he's happy with it. When what? The money is not the ikar. It's not the mechuban chaz v'shalom. It's the psolet. Which is why Moshe Rabbeinu was at that madriga. Which is why all those tzaddikim were at that madriga. And I think it's a very good thing to keep in mind, to be conscious of the fact, why, for what reason am I searching, or am I giving this guy kavod or this or that?
So I think it's even like unconscious. Like you don't even realize when you're doing it. You know?
That's how.
Yeah.
That's why Hitbodedut is so important.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna ask yourself that question. Or over time you'll even get there, because you might not even realize it for a couple of years. It's like, but when you study Torah like this, you begin to realize, like, what am I doing? When you hear conversations of Rabbi Yisrael Dovadesa about how everything that he was doing was to run away from money and honor, he literally had nothing. He had raised so much money. He can get raised around $1 million shekels or something like that, maybe even more. And every single dollar he used was for the books. Every single dollar, to the point where he didn't use $1 on himself, not for an apartment, not for a klum. He was in an old age home until someone found him and thought Sally was a tzaddik. To show you the bitur that you're going to go to, because the ikar is the mechuban, which is the hitbonenut, which is to print the books of Chapi Nachman for him. The money was just a vehicle to get there.
Yeah.
But he never made the money ikar, because he never took for himself. And you see this, he said, why today there are so many false rabbanim, false people out there that are constantly searching for, he says, kavod mamon. Kavod mamon ve'pirsum. Honor, money, and fame. When that doesn't become the ikar, that's when you're a winner. That's when you attain true hitbonenut of the Torah. That's when you can get to the sodot of Torah and create an application out of it. To have a bina within the sodot of Torah. That you can study the sodot of Torah and bring out the advice that Rabbeinu was teaching in Likutei Moharan, and something that might be hidden, sealed until you, until you have your parnasah, and you know what? You say this time, I'm going to give chomesh. Or I'm going to give 15% instead of 10. That is breaking the boundary of your own kavod. That is breaking the boundary of making the money the ikar and saying, you know what, the money is not the ikar. It's for the tzedakah. Which is what will give you access to Yidbonenut. Now, when you're going to try to apply advice that you're going to study, it's going to give you tremendous... Hashem's going to give you chokhmah. Because you are relying on Him anymore. You're no longer relying on the money. The money is no longer the ikar. It's not the mechuban. That's why tzedakah is such a big test.
It's like, yeah, like, what do they say? They say, like, it's like dam. It's like your blood.
Damim, exactly.
Yeah, you're like giving up you. You're part of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Damim in the Gemara, Tata Mashmeh has two implications: blood and money.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. It's exactly that. וזה בחינת.
Oh, me?
All you, bro.
וזה בחינת. פסל לך הפסולת יהיה שלך, משם נתעשר משה, כי זה הפסולת של לוחות הם בחינת הסובבים שניסרים ונפסלים סביב סביב התבוננות, והם בחינת עשירות, כנ"ל?
Yeah, כנ"ל.
שעל ידו באים אל התבוננות כנ"ל.
Exactly. And this is the aspect of what is brought down in the Midrash Tanchuma and Parashat Ki Tisa. Psolecha. Carve out for yourself, like we talked about earlier, right? Ha-psolet yushelcha. The psolet will be yours. Misham nit'asher Moshe. From there, Moshe became wealthy. That's what it says in the Midrash. Ha-psolet yushelcha, misham nit'asher from Moshe. From there, that's where Moshe got his wealth. The psolet of the luchot, the sapphire, right? Because this psolet of the luchot are what we're talking about, are the introductions before you get to the intended subject. Which are constantly shot off and nifsalin and scraped off surrounding the Yidbonenut. The Yidbonenut is the ikar, it's the intended subject, and everything surrounding that is the money. And this is what we're talking about, is the wealth. The wealth is just a vehicle to the end. To get to what? The Yidbonenut. Meaning what?
The Hibonenut of sorry, I may have missed it, maybe not on the Hibonenut of what? Get the Ikar, the Hibonenut
of the Torah.
The Torah.
There are
of
contemplations
Torah.
of
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, got it.
There are contemplations of the Torah. Which contemplations specifically are we talking about? Specifically the contemplations of the Sod of the Torah.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Torah Ma'atikastima, which is why Rabbeinu introduces.
Okay, now okay.
That's the Ikar, by the way.
Got it. Okay.
Because even the lowest Jew, even someone like us, the Torah that's going to bring us out, it's paradoxical because we think, why do I need that when I don't know anything else? Yes, we have to study all the elements of the Torah. Studying halakha every single day is debated the most important thing, along with Musa, books of like Rabbeinu and stuff like that. Halakha, Gemara, all that inyan, all those elements of the Torah which are the fundamentals of the Torah. But why is Rabbeinu specifically focusing on the keter of the Torah? Because that's going to bring you out of your galut mentally. The halakha and the Gemara can only go so low. The keter is going to help you be conscious of the fact of where you're holding. It's going to bring you out. It's going to change your mind completely. It's going to bring you out of a hastara shebetoch hastara to make you realize where you are. There's nothing bigger than that. It's the ultimate consciousness. So what are we talking about here? The Hidbonenut specifically from that place, because that place is going to put things into structure to say, where am I focusing? Where am I going? That's where it's going to come from, all that consciousness, that awakening, that Hidbonenut. So what we're saying here, that Hashem Yitbarach tells Moshe Rabbeinu that all the money will be in your eyes like psolet. And by the fact that you'll have all the money in the world and you won't run after it, meaning that in your eyes it's like psolet, it's like scraps, the money, meaning that there's no importance to the money, then you're going to attain the perfection in the Hidbonenut Torah. That will give you the ability to bring down a tremendous contemplation of Torah Hidbonenut. And Moshe Rabbeinu could lead the Jewish people for the entire generation, to the point where the entire generation, it says what the maidservant saw on the sea, even Yechezkel and Navi couldn't see. Meaning, Ata horet aladat ki Hashem hu hanakim. Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu, you horet aladat, you showed that, you illuminated that to the entire generation that Hashem is Elohim. Meaning that the lowest person in that generation was like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe brought them up to him. This is what we call the Dor Adea, the generation of knowledge. Because Moshe was that, he made the entire generation that, which is the greatness of attaching and binding yourself to the tzaddik. Because when you bind yourself to the tzaddik who's at this madrega of that, you too become like him. How? Through the bitul. When you nullify yourself. When you begin to recognize that you yourself don't really understand much, I'm going to accept what the tzaddik says. And when you do that with tremendous humility, you begin to understand who you really are. You begin to tap into parts of yourself that you never knew existed. Power, specific koach within yourself, specific potential within yourself that you never could have tapped into. Specifically because what? The tzaddik is going to illuminate you, something within you that you never saw. And you can never see until you get there. So, what does it say? This is the same is true for Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Brought down in Gemara Ketubot. At the time when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi passed away, Zakav Rabbi Eser et Ve'otav K'Rapeh Bala Ve'amar. He lifted up his 10 fingers and he said like this: Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, Gadlu ve'adu lefanecha. It is revealed and known before you, She'agati be'eser et be'otai b'Torah, that I toiled with all my 10 fingers in the Torah. Ve'lo leheneti afilu be'etzva ktana, but I did not benefit from the world even with my pinky, with my small finger. May there be peace in my resting, etc., etc., etc. Meaning what? That Rabbi Yehuda Nasi toiled in the Torah with such a great toiling, and he merited everything. He attained everything. And all of that was attained through what? The ashirut. But specifically because he did not use the ashirut for himself. He didn't benefit from the world from his pinky. Yeah. It was all for the attaining of a hidbonenut. And he testified upon himself that he merited this entire madrega because he didn't even benefit even from a small finger from this wealth. Okay. So what does it say? So the Biur Likutim is going to mention something about the idea that even though the psolet is considered psolet, scraps, it's not total scraps in a sense. Why? Because it's still very necessary to attain the goal. They're very necessary in the final tikkun of attaining itbonanut. Because what we're talking about is the wealth. That it's very important. Because first you must lose, then you must find. First you must sleep, then you must what? Wake up. Everything is for the purpose of the tikkun. Meaning, before you get to the hibonanut, you first need to fall into the sleep of what we call money, or like what we're going to call the psolet, which we call money. You have to first go through there, meaning it's part of the necessity of the tikkun. Which and we see with the entire story of the lost princess. That what? Because he's going to take it into that element to explain what that is. That we see with the Shani Lamelech, the viceroy of the king, who goes searching for the princess who gets lost. As you're going to see in the story, that he goes searching and seeking and trying to find the princess. All the searching that he goes through, in which he doesn't find her for years and years and years, is all necessary. It's all part of the Avodat Hashem, even the fall. Because the fall, the psolet in itself, is going to be a necessary part of the tikkun because it's a vehicle for the final goal. Now that it's a vehicle for something bigger, now the ashirut in itself has importance. But how does it have importance? Only when you give it no importance. That's the tikkun. Meaning, when is it going to have importance? When you give it no chashivut. Because for Moshe Rabbeinu with the psolet, that's when it became the psolet to attain something much bigger. Meaning it's no longer psolet in Moshe Rabbeinu's eyes, it's a way to attain hibonanut. But only when you see the physical element of mammon as something which you will not benefit from. I'm not going to use the money for chad v'shalom for my own benefit. It's only going to be for Avodat Hashem. Now the money as a simple element has no chashivut in your eyes.
I have a question. So could worrying about money fall under this idea of like, we're talking about using your money for good. What about you just like stressing about money? Like, oh my God, I don't have enough money to pay for this, to pay for that. Does that fall under this whole category of like not using money in the correct way?
The truth is if you're at the madrega to use your money completely in the correct way, you will have the emunah to be there where you're going to say, I don't need to worry about my parnasa.
Because I feel like a lot of people can give tzedakah because even though it's not as easy, obviously, but it's also like this like mental thing. I feel like also you gotta like, you're saying if you give away tzedakah, you think that you have yeshuva dot in the parnasah.
The truth is, yeah, a lot of the Rabbeinu explained that giving tzedakah actually helps you increase your inyan of simcha, increases all the elements of attaining true ashirut.
Okay.
Tzedakah is actually a key to attain. When we talk about ashirut as a whole of simcha and lack of worry, lack of dagot parnasah, tzedakah is the way to get there. Rabbeinu had many lessons where he describes the importance of tzedakah. The entire idea of tzedakah is transforming the cruelty into rachmanut. Berogez rachem tizkor. When you're in rogez, when you're constant, because the entire idea of achzariyut, of cruelty, is that it's very difficult for you to give tzedakah. When you mentioned earlier, the perfect example, it's damim, it's your blood, right? It's who you are. The money you earn, you use your sweat, your tears, your blood to get there. So it's a part of you at this point. Now that it's a part of you, it's very difficult to let go. So what does Rabbeinu say? The ikar of tzedakah is when you turn l'shaber achzariyut and to l'ofcho l'rachmanut. Break your cruelty, turn it into compassion. Which is why Hashem commands the ravens to feed Eliyahu Navi in the cave. Why? Because the raven is the most cruel animal. Has no rachamim on its child. But the raven is going to be the one that I commanded the ravens to feed you, to sustain you. Because the entire idea of tzedakah is to turn that raven within you and to make it completely rachamim. So you're right, it starts slowly.
Yeah.
Now, in this element, what we're talking about, dagot parnasah, dagot, Rabbeinu says, comes from a lack of emunah.
So it's a separate. Okay.
Will it play into here? It will play into here. Do I know 100% connection? No. But what I do know for a fact is dagot parnasah, Rabbeinu said there should be no reason why a person should worry. Hashem has sustained the world and he will sustain the world from the beginning to the end. The dagot comes from a place of a lack of bitachon or emunah in Hashem Yidbarach that he won't sustain you.
Yeah.
So that is a different subject while also playing on this idea. Because if you really are at the madriga where the money is the psolet for you, it doesn't even matter, you're going to be happy with everything Hashem gives you. You won't even begin to worry. Because it's no longer the important thing. Your focus is going to be somewhere totally different. Did I pray with the amount of kavanah that I should have prayed today? Obviously, it's a very high madriga because it's a very big test. Money is very tough and all this stuff. But, of course, there's many different... there's so many different madrigot. This lesson is so deep because so many different elements play along with it. Like what you're mentioning. All these questions are all related.
Yeah.
So, what did Rabbi Avraham and Rabbi Nachman write in the Yoel Likutim? That the money in itself is also needed. Just like the chipus, the searching of the viceroy of the king, is also necessary. Let me know whenever you...
just want to make sure.
The searching for the princess, which is the mechuvan, the hitbonenut, or the neshama, that's the ikar, right? The princess. But all the searching, you're going to say what? The searching didn't count? No, of course it counts. Even the faults count towards that because it's all towards the final goal of finding the princess, which is what we are going to call the ashirut in terms of the hitbonenut. So now all those things are going to be used what? The ashirut will be used as hakdamot, introduction, and beautiful kedim to attain the purpose. So only whenever you use it in the proper fashion. So what did the Papa Chochmah say? Etzer tzaddik ha'ikar hu mechuvan. By the tzaddik, the main thing is the mechuvan, the intended subject. Meaning the hitbonenut that one attains through the ashirut, through the wealth. The wealth is only an introduction and an hakdama, just a preface through which a person gets to the mechuvan, the final subject. גם כן השירות הוא בכלל פסולת נגד ההתבוננות, שהוא עיקר המכוון אצל הצדיק, רק שממנה מאחר שעל ידו השירות בעלי המכוון שהוא התבוננות, שזה התבוננות לטובת כל ישראל, כמו שבכלל משה קיבל הלוחות המוסריים להוכחה לישראל, לכן קיבל כל התורה ולמדה לישראל, רק שהפסולת של הלוחות ממנה נשאר שלו, כמו שאמר לו השם יתברך, משם נתעשר משה. So he says, automatically the psolet is going to remain by Moshe Rabbeinu because Hashem is going to constantly give him that psolet or that ashirut, because everything he's doing is for the good of the Jewish people as a whole, to bring the luchot, to bring the Jewish people to the concept of that. So Hashem is going to constantly grant it to him because it's never for himself in the first place.
Yeah.
And because it's never for himself in the first place, that's why it's considered psolet in Moshe's eyes, because it was never for him.
Yeah.
Everything that Moshe Rabbeinu was doing was complete. He was completely mitbatel from gashmiut. He had no gashmiut left. So what did he say? The same is true specifically with regard to the tzaddik. Why have Rabbi Nachman had to say a phrase that the true tzaddik needs all the money in the world? Who said such a thing like this? No, because he was at the madriga, what we're talking about here, where there was no gashmiut left. So for him, there was no tova for himself. It was only for tova, he said.
Yeah.
And because of that, that's why he said that he needs all the money in the world. Because he can help anyone.
Yeah.
So what did he say? Through the ashirut, to the wealth, he gets to the contemplation, and with this he illuminates the eyes of all the Jewish people. That, meaning the psolet, which is the ashirut, automatically stays by him now, because without it, it's impossible for him to bring benefit to the entire Jewish people as a whole, because that's the only way to get there. So because he has so much care for the Jewish people, he has so much rachmanut on the Jewish people, as a whole, these tzaddikim that we're talking about, why today we are still learning from Rabbi Yehuda Nassi's Mishnayot, because thanks to him, it's been all ordered. Thanks to Rav Ashi, it's been all ordered the Gemara, and why all these things, they need tremendous ashirut, because it was never for themselves. And because it was never for themselves, that's why the ashirut was always left by them. So ve'avavu b'chinat luchot. The vav, we said, the luchot, this is the son of Papa Luchot. The luchot had orkan vav, rochban vav. Was 6 cubits wide, 6 cubits tall, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The luchot. If I'm not mistaken. So what's it meaning to say? The vav represents the luchot. So if you're going to take the mammon, take the word mammon, you have mem, vav, nun. Take out the vav. Why? Because the vav represents the luchot. Meaning that's the mammon that Moshe Rabbeinu was trying. The mammon was to get the luchot, the vav. And what's mem, nun now? Because the vav represents the 6 cubits of the luchot, the 6 by 6. What's mem nun? Misham nitasher Moshe. Rashi tevot misham nitasher Moshe. From there Moshe got wealthy. Meaning from what? From the vav of the luchot, which is what the carvings of the vav. So now look at now the sod of the Papa Luchot saying what? That what is the Rabbeinu trying to say? That from the luchot, which is the vav, that's where Moshe Rabbeinu got wealthy. Misham nitasher Moshe. Rashi tevot misham, the first letter is mem. Nitasher nun. Moshe mem. Again, mem nun, which is the shoresh mammon. That is the way Moshe Rabbeinu used the mammon to get to the vav, which is the luchot, which had a 6 by 6 measurement. So this is what we were talking about here, and that's what we're going to read. V'zeh
otiyot mamon reshei tavot misham nitasher Moshe v'avai hu bechinat haluchot shemisham nitasher Moshe ki haluchot arkan v'rachban v'chu kamo she'amru abatenu zichronam livracha.
Chazak. And this is the word mamon. Reshei tavot misham nitasher Moshe. Why Rabbeinu doesn't include the vav? Because Rabbeinu writes Mammon here, but he didn't include the vav. It says Rashi tevot misham nitasher Moshe. Where's the vav? That's where the Papa Luchot is coming to tell you. And what is he saying here? That from there Moshe Rabbeinu got wealthy. Because Rabbeinu is saying the luchot.
So Rabbi Nachman didn't even explain why he took it out.
Now he is actually. He's explaining that. Because look what he's saying here. Because the luchot are hinting with the letter vav. Why? Because the width of the luchot was, not cubits, my bad. Tfachim. Yeah, cubits would be massive, my bad. Tfachim. 6 tfachim wide by 6 tfachim tall. That was the size of the luchot. 6 wide? Yeah, exactly. 6.
Oh, they're pretty big.
So that was the size of the luchot that is brought down in the Gemara Bava Batra. So the vav, which represents the size of the luchot, is the vav of the mammon. That's left out because the mem nun misham nitasher Moshe, from the luchot Moshe got wealthy. Meaning from the psolet of the luchot, that's where he got to the vav, the luchot, and that's what the Papa Luchot was hinting to. The Wait a second, let me see this 1 second. The Papa Lo Chokhmah is saying something interesting.
Who wrote the Papa?
He's the Papa Lo Chokhmah is Rabbi Nachman Micherin. Rabbi Nachman Micherin was the Gaon of Rabbi Natan. He was the one who wrote. He's the most famous commentator on all the books of Rabbeinu, aside from Rabbi Natan.
How long did he live after Rabbi Natan?
I don't think he ever met Rabbeinu. Rabbi Nachman Micherin was Rabbi Natan's, I wouldn't say his main student, because his main student was someone by the name of Rav Nachman of Tulchin, who was his shamash, who never really wrote anything at all. But he's the one who got all the Mesorah of Rabbeinu at the profound level, whose son later became Rabbi Avram Ber Nachman, who we just read in the Birra Likutim.
Okay.
Rabbi Nachman Micherin is the Gaon of the generation. He's the Breslover Gaon, who wrote Papa Lo Chokhmah, who wrote Rimzeh Masiot, who wrote a very famous book called, what do you call it? Otzar Ha'ira. It's Likutei Etzot. You know Likutei Etzot? Likutei Etzot essentially takes all the practical advice of Likutei Moran. That Rabbi Natan wrote Likutei Etzot. All the practical advice of Likutei Moran based on alphabetical section. So, for example, he'll bring you a subject, Aleph. Aleph will be eating, and then he'll bring you all the places where Rabbeinu speaks about eating in Sichot Haran, Likutei Moran, etc., etc. The Papa Lo Chokhmah did that for all of Likutei Halachot. Likutei Halachot is 8 times the size of Likutei Moran. That's what the Papa Lo Chokhmah did all these things. Papa Lo Chokhmah, very big tzaddik. He did Papa Lo Chokhmah and Shas. He wrote so many sfarim, I can't even begin to tell you. He was a gaon we cannot even imagine. And the Anava is beyond impressive. If you read his will, the Papa Lo Chokhmah's will, when he explains how to bury him, you'd freak out. It's so humbling.
Where is he? He's buried in Ukraine?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's buried in Ukraine. I'm not sure where. But when he was buried, he told everyone to, that nobody important should wash him. Just the normal Chevra Kadisha. They should never write any praises on his grave, like Gaon, Lamdan, Tzaddik, Chavdei Shalom, because they are not even true. Like, he goes through an entire thing to make sure that on the eulogy, not to say anything, like, prideful about him. Yeah. Crazy stuff. To show you the Adrava we're talking about. Real students of Rabbeinu, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Natan, you know? Real humility. So what is he saying? Aside from the fact that Mammon has the Vav, he's saying the Vav is included within the word Misham. Why? Because Misham is Misham Nitasham Moshe. From there Moshe got wealthy. So what's he saying here? What is he saying? Try to explain it. Havav ubchinat haluchot. Rabbeinu said the Vav is the luchot. Meaning to say, Ki Havav shel Mammon nichlal b'tevat Misham. The Vav of Mammon is included within the word Misham. It's not part of the word Mammon. That's why Rabbeinu writes Mem Nun in Mammon. Not because he's taking out the Vav, right? Yeah. The Vav is going to go to the word Misham. Misham Nitasham. From there, Moshe got wealthy.
Where's the Vav in Misham?
He's saying that's where the Vav belongs.
It should be there.
It's not in the place. Out of the words Misham Nitasham Moshe, the Vav is within the word Misham. Why? Because Misham, from there Moshe got wealthy. Because the Luchot was the intended subject, which in turn gave Moshe the wealth in the first place. Because what he's saying is, there's no way Moshe Rabbeinu was going to be given the wealth if the main subject was not the Luchot in the first place. Yeah. So the Misham is where the Vav is. From there Moshe got wealthy. What does it mean from there? From the Vav, from the Luchot, Moshe got wealthy. That's what he's saying essentially. At a technical standpoint, that the Vav is referencing the Misham Nitasham Moshe. So even though Misham Nitasham Moshe is only Rashi Tevot Mem Nun Mem, the Vav is within the Misham because it's referencing the Luchot, which is from where Moshe got wealthy. That's what he's explaining. It's a more technical commentary. No. Okay. כן ביה פרפה לא חמרה, על פי המבואר לקמר והזקן הוא קצר מלמעלה והולך מתחתיו שזה בחינת אריכות ימים. That's going to be in the next section. You want to continue in section bet, or you want to pause here? Because now we're going to go into something totally new.
Let's pause. I mean, if you want to continue, I'm just feeling like, is it going to get like...
Oh, it's gonna go in.
Like, what do you think we should do?
I mean, Besimcha, I'm happy to do whatever. If you want, we can start it, or if you want, we can review the final, what we just did.
No, I'm saying, like, if we start it, do we have to, like, finish it, or is it, like...
No, you can stop it. We can do 2 lines if you want and introduce the topic.
Okay, let's do
Let's
that.
do 2 lines. Yeah, let's do 2 lines.
Yeah, because I don't want to, like, get into it and then, like...
And then we stop halfway
yeah,
through.
exactly.
No. So let's start the first 2 lines. That's going to be the introduction.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about a totally new subject right now, which is very chashuv.
ולבוא לעשירות הזאת הוא על ידי בחינת תיקוני עתיק, בחינת אריכות ימים, בחינת תקן, כי צריך אריכות ימים כדי לקבל בתוכו את עשירות של ההתבוננות.
Exactly. So, okay. This in itself is... ולבוא לעשירות הזאת, to get to that ashirut we're talking about, that wealth that we're talking about, is through the rectifications of atik, tikkunei atik. Now, what does that mean, rectifications of atik? We're talking about the rectifications of the beard of atik. What is atik? It's a parsuf of atik that we talked about, which is the parsuf, Hashem's almost a facet of Hashem focusing on the sfira of Keter. It is almost an all-encompassing, it's like a nagut, it's like the way Hashem conducts the world based through the sfira of Keter. But it's a full form and structure from Keter to Malchut, but the main focus, the main sfira is the Keter. It's Keter with all the sfirot in it. That's the Atik. There's different levels of Arich. There's Arich, there's Atik, there's Atika, which is Arich Anpin. There's Atik. Atik, what we're talking about, it is the highest point of the Keter we're talking about here. Now we're talking about the rectifications of the beard. The rectifications of the beard is what we call Tikkunei Atik. Because when we say Atik Yomin, the Ancient of Days, what are we referencing? Almost a vision, because we cannot say that Hashem looks like this, because Hashem has no form, no vision. But it's the picture that we paint of Hashem when Hashem has a white beard. And he's filled with Rachamim, and he gave Moshe Rabbeinu the 13 Midot HaRachamim. Why 13 Midot HaRachamim? Because there are 13 rectifications of the beard. The Arizal goes into this in depth in all the elements. In many of his farim, he goes into this in depth. But the Zohar Kadosh explains this inyan. Why the Zaken, also why the Zaken is katzar milemana ve'olech u'mitrachem shezeh b'chinat arichut yamim. The Zaken, Baba Chochmah explains, is narrow here and then begins to get wide and begins to get long here. Why is that? Because the same is true of arichut yamim. The days begin small and then they begin wider and wider. Meaning you increase more kedusha, more yirah, more ahava, avodat Hashem within the day. That's the inyan of arichut yamim. The same way the zakat is for. The zakat is for. The beard is for. So within the beard, there's 13 rectifications of the beard. They are referencing, essentially they are symbols. They almost correspond to the 13 midot through which the Torah is expounded upon. You know, Rabbi Ishmael Omer, Bishoshes Midot HaTorah, Nidash Bahem, Kal V'Chomer, Mizeh HaShabbat, no. Those 13 midot correspond to the 13 rectifications of the beard and 13 midot HaRachamim. It's all connected.
I never really knew what I was saying about that.
By the way, Rabbeinu said, when you know how, by the way, because those are all secrets on how to study the Torah.
Yeah.
When you know how everything is operating within those 13 midot, how the Torah is expounded, you know how to study Torah in the highest form possible. When you know how that works, and when you study Gemara and you see the Kal V'Chomer, you understand how everything is operating. You have a tremendous amount of Chokhmah. So study, if you understand the 13 midot, that's like the greatest way to possibly study Torah. That through the 13 midot, through which the Torah is expanded upon, you can michadesh b'Torah, you can attain yitbonenut in the Torah that we're talking about. So those 13 midot, through which the Torah is expounded upon, correspond to the 13 tikkunei atik, the 13 rectifications of the beard. And those 13 midot through which the Torah is expanded upon is through which a person gains yitbonenut. So you can see why they're correlated. Why the beard, which is arichut yamim, length of days, just as the beard is narrow at the top, wide at the bottom, just like arichut yamim is, just like the shofar is, all these very deep stuff, they're all connected. This partuf of Atik is what we call Sfira Keter Elyon, the supernal Keter. You're good.
That'd be like 10 to 15. So what time? Okay. Just reading. Okay, sounds good. Okay.
Very good. So this is what it says. Penei Hashem. When it says the face of Hashem, Rabban explains it in lesson 20 because over there he speaks about the rectifications of the beard. This represents the expounding element and the explanation of the Torah. Penei Hashem, the face of Hashem. As it says, V'hadarta penei zaken. You shall give hadar, almost a splendor, to the face of the zaken. Zaken is hadrat panim. What is zaken? One who has hadrat panim. One who has a majestic face. This represents the 13 midot, the 13 rectifications of the beard, which the Zohar speaks about, which represent the 13 midot which the Torah has expounded upon, that we just mentioned. That's from Torah 20, Zohar Kadosh, Acharemot, and Pashat Pinchas. Now, what's the subject of this? There's actually a story in the Gemara. I was just studying about Metzia that it explains over there Rabbi Yochanan, the story between Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish, the famous relationship they had. Mm-hmm. How Rabbi Yochanan told Resh Lakish to marry his sister and all this stuff. It says about Rabbi Yochanan that he was the most beautiful man. The Gemara asked a question, but wait, wasn't there another Amora? I think it was Rabbi Abahu, who was more beautiful. Rabbi Abahu, I think. Uh-huh. It could have been. Don't quote me on it. Yeah. There was another. The Gemara asked, but wasn't he the most beautiful? Mm. So what they answer? No, he was more beautiful, simply because what? He had hadrat panim. He had a majestic face. Why? Because he had a beard. Rabbi Yochanan did not have a beard. So the chidush. So what's he done here? What's he done here? The beard, it gives you hadrat panim, a majestic face. It gives you hadrat yofi. It gives you a beautiful and an aura.
Yeah.
The beard that we're talking about here is the same thing. The tikkun atik. It's almost a supernal light of Keter which is on the face. That's the beard, which is considered the beauty of a man's face according to the Zohar Kadosh. Brought down in many places, well, it says it's shapir on a man's face. That which is beautiful on a man's face, the beauty of a man's face is zakan, his beard. Now, what does that have to do? It has to do with this, because what we're talking about here now is the zakan has a midah. Its essential midah is rachamim. It is what we're going to call the rectifications of Atir. It is the chesed of Hashem that comes from the Keter Elyon, the partzuf, or what we call the supernal Keter. There's Keter Taton, Keter Elyon. Arich Anpin Atik Yomin. The Atik Yomin we're talking about, which is what we're talking about, we're focusing on the highest of the high right now, is the light of the Zakan, the light of the beard. The 13 midot, the 13 portions of the beard, which in turn is the aspect of Arichut Yamim, length of days, which is what Abed was saying here. Arichut Yamin, length of days, comes from almost from the same language as Atik Yomin, ancient of days. It's the same idea. The ancient of days and length of days is the same idea. In Atik Yomin you have Arichut Yamin because it's beyond time. So what? And then you have Arich Anpin, which is another partzuf of Hashem, which is included within the Atik Yomin. That's the lower Keter, and that's the beard. All that stuff. It's all playing onto one aspect. The supernal Keter possesses everything below it. Okay? I'm not going to get into it because it's complicated. I myself don't understand even a drop of it. But, one needs arichut yamim, length of days, meaning what Rabbeinu is going to explain now, which is to add kedusha, add yirat shamayim to your day, add that to your day, constantly improve, start again, and add, and be more kadosh, and be better individual. Fall, pick yourself back up. Arichut yamim, not to waste time. All these things. So that what? Now the long days now have a kli to accept within the ashirut of Yitbarnut. Meaning what? The ashirut needs a kli to dua. You cannot get ashirut until you have the kli. What's the kli? The arichut yamim. So the quality to get the wealth that you need to attain Yitbarnut is one thing.
So, but there's so many wealthy people that like you see that are just like. I'm talking about like example, George Soros. He's a Jew.
Yeah.
Well, he's the ultimate klipa. How does he have all this wealth?
So he has no arichut yamim, and his ashirut is not ashirut through which to get hitbonenut. If you were to do an insane tshuva and start doing that, Bizrat Hashem Barach, because he's literally like this guy.
Yeah.
It's not even applicable for him. Hashem's giving him his money. It's almost like Hashem's giving him his money in this world, so that he would literally have nothing in the next.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's a totally different avodah for what the money's being used for.
Mm-hmm.
Even our little parnasa, we can attain greater hitbonenut even with all the money that he has, because we have more arichut yamim. Rabbanu is saying it's all dependent on the arichut yamim. With your arichut yamim, the more arichut yamim you have more access to use your parnasa, whatever Hashem has given you, because Hashem has decided that that's what's enough, that they need hitbonenut you need to get to. The arichut yamim, though, is the kli that determines how much you're going to turn around that money into a vehicle for hitbonenut. Arichut yamim essentially is the kli through which to transform the money into hitbonenut. You cannot, Hashem will not give you the ashirut through which to attain hitbonenut without the arichut yamim, the length of days.
And just to go back, the length of days is like what again exactly? Like
To add that, add simple.
Add that, yeah.
That's the main thing.
Simple.
Because that's what Rabbeinu was talking about here. Bipshitut. Add yirat shamayim. Add that into your day. Be a better Jew every single day. When you wake up, start again.
Okay.
Meaning, the biggest thing is really not to waste time.
Yeah.
When you're at work, to grab onto Kedusha, that the pnimiyut of your machshava should be within Hashem, within the Torah, dinei Torah. Like, very difficult stuff we're talking about here, because wasting time is one of those things. Bitul zman is such a difficult thing, but so chashuv.
Sure.
And Rabbeinu was just saying, grab onto a Tehillim. Literally just grabbing onto Tehillim is what is giving you arichut yamim to attain ashirut, to attain hitbonenut. We don't see how it connects, but it's like, it seems like so far off, right? But Rabbeinu was saying, no, they're directly one in one. You attain arichut yamim, you're going to use the ashirut for hitbonenut. They're directly correlated to each other. They're scaled. You're going to push one. It's a domino effect. You push one, you're going to get the other.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, because if you're just using all your time if you're just wasting time, then you wasting time is about yourself.
Exactly.
But I'm just trying to think this, but if you're just constantly not wasting time picking up the tail and picking up the Mishnah, then you're not focusing on yourself.
Exactly. It's the ultimate hitbonenut.
And then from there, if you're not focusing on yourself, okay.
Yeah, the ultimate hitbonenut is to be able to use your time.
Yeah.
Sechel. It's like, that's what Rabbeinu is gonna say. It's you have to grade in your days in Avodat Hashem. Because every big day begins small, right? It starts in the morning with very big, like, gashmit things, right? You're gonna have to brush your teeth, you're gonna have to wake up, wash your hands, do things in gashmit, go to the restroom.
Yeah.
It starts narrow, but ends big. That's the inyan of arichut yamim, which is why the beard is shaped like that.
Small and big.
And then it becomes, it becomes wide, yeah. It starts narrow, close to the face, and then it becomes wide. You see how the hairs grow longer and they go out.
Yeah.
That's the inyan of the beard. That's arichut yamim. The arichut, at a simple pshat, this is the summary. Arichut yamim gives us what? Gives us a kli to accept the ashirut, which then in turn the ashirut will give us hitbonenut. That's a pshitut. That's where we're at a pshat element.
Got it.
Obviously it goes much.
But we don't want pshat.
You want pshat? The goal is to make the sodot Torah and to transform them into etzot b'avodat Hashem. When I say pshat, I'm saying etzot. It's not even pshat.
Yeah.
Truth is, it's so deep. But it sounds simple, because the main thing is to make it simple to action. That's what Rabbi Nathan says so many times in the introduction. The main thing, don't keep the Torah just a system. Turn it into action. That's why tefillah on Torah is the higher than even Torah study.
Tefillah on Torah?
Meaning when you're going to go in your car, drive back home, to pray on what we just studied, to say, Hashem, I see I'm not using my time properly, because that's something I struggle with. I'm not using my time properly. Hashem, help me use my time properly, because if I use my time properly, then the ashirut you're going to give me, not only will be enticed to give me more, because I have a bigger kli now, but the money that I do get will now be used towards hitbonenut, which I need to be able to attain the Torah, which I need to be able to apply etzot b'avodat Hashem. What does it mean to take etzot b'avodat Hashem? It's hitbonenut.
Yeah.
To take the advice of Rabbenu's Torah, the Zohar Kadosh, when you pick up a book of the Gemara, to apply what it says over there, Pshitut, and to connect things, to connect what it says, what Rabbenu says here in the Gemara, this halacha, this thing, and to put it all together to say, how can I become a better Jew? And that's what it's talking about here. Look how Rabbenu always goes back to the element of Tachlis, what's the main thing? Arichut Yamim. Add things to your day, add Tusha to your day, add Yirat Shamayim to your day, because that's what's going to make you better. And that's the kli to attain Hashirut. Because if you want to just attain Hashirut, it's not going to work. You need Arichut Yamim. You need to have a sechel in your day. You need to use your day with proper zman. You need to be like, Hashem Yitbarach, I wasted 30 minutes today. Yeah. Now sometimes Bitul Torah is Kiyuma. You have to understand your boundary, your limit. Yeah. But it means sometimes you're just scrolling on your phone, Hashem, like, you know what I mean? I do this all the time, scrolling my phone, Hashem, like, I don't even realize till after, like, wow, I just spent 15 minutes without being conscious. No. And it's a crazy thing. Hashem is, Rabbeinu is saying, all those moments you're going to try to grab onto Tusha, Arichut Yamim, that's your kli. That's what makes you who you are. That's what gives you a bigger kli to accept more Hashirut. More simcha. It's going to give you more simcha. You're going to find purpose in everything you do. That's the key. That's where we're going to stop for now. So obviously, it's going to go much deeper. But B'ezrat Hashem, I think we got off to a good recap. It's good to be back. Baruch Hashem.
Should I turn us off?
Yeah.